How's it going, guys? Football-ManagerYouthDevelopment.co.uk here. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at making a tactic for Manchester United on Football Manager 2017. I've just been taking a look at some of the players that Man United have got, and Paul Pogba is by far the most standout player in the Manchester United team. You just have to have a look at some of his attributes that he's got here. The particular ones that I do definitely need to take advantage of, I think, is going to be his long shots of 19. He's also got the player trait of that he likes to shoot from distance. It might be a good idea if you are managing Manchester United to also get Paul Pogba to shoot with power. I do think if he's taking a lot of long shots and he's also shooting with power, what you might see, obviously he might score from his long range efforts, but also the goalkeeper might actually end up parrying some of these shots just due to the power of the shots. And then you may have some other strikers or some other sort of more attacking players who might be able to follow up if the goalkeeper parries the ball. It's also going to be important to make sure that you're having a look at Ibrahimovic and getting the most out of him. Of course, his work rate only being 8, he's not going to be running around and sort of chasing down defenders, but he is certainly going to be the type of player that you can use probably as a target man or that type of role basically. His best role is as a complete forward. I'm going to have a look at the description of the complete forward and just see how I can make the most out of that with Zlatan basically. I have also noticed that Zlatan's composure is only 13 and his decision making is only 14. They're not too bad in terms of attributes, but you know, his composure, you don't particularly want Zlatan maybe being one-on-one with the goalkeeper, because that's not going to be the best way to use Zlatan. I have noticed that his finishing attribute is 16 and that he has got the player trait of shoots with power. So I do think what's going to be a good thing for Zlatan, as well as his long shots attribute of 16, is to make sure that when he does get the ball, if he's got a slight opportunity to shoot a goal, that it's going to be a very good idea for him to be shooting as much as possible. You don't necessarily want him like one-on-one with the goalkeeper. I think one-on-one with the goalkeeper, you're more looking at a player like Anthony Martial, for example, or maybe like a Juan Mata. But with Zlatan, it's just going to be a good idea for him to pepper the opposition goalkeeper with as many shots as possible. The last player that I just wanted to have a real quick look at before making the tactic for Manchester United is Rooney. I know in real life at the time of making this video he's not actually getting into the Manchester United team, but certainly on Football Manager 2017 his attributes are absolutely fantastic, and he's certainly going to be a part of the tactic that I'm going to be making for Manchester United. I'm basically thinking of playing him just behind Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I do think that's probably going to be the best way to use him. Looking at the Manchester United team, they have got a hell of a lot of good midfielders. Their defence is not too bad, but I do certainly think in the more attacking areas, that's where Man United are a lot stronger. You've obviously got other players like Mkhitaryan, Juan Mata, other players like that, and I do think you're going to be able to get the best out of Manchester United from making the most of their attacking players. I do like the fact that Wayne Rooney likes to come deep to get the ball. I think that's going to be a very important thing for him to do. I am actually probably going to be looking to play him in a sort of shadow striker role. I do think that's probably going to be the best way to use Wayne Rooney. He has got a finishing attribute of 15 and his off the ball is 16. So I do think he's going to be able to get into them good positions. Obviously, he's got the good work rate. Needless to say, Rooney has got very good aggression and good bravery. So when Rooney, when we're defending, he is going to be closing down the opposition defenders as well, which is obviously going to help us. Okay then, so it's actually taken me a little bit of time to make this tactic for United. There's a couple of players that I have left out that I'm not particularly too happy with. Potentially Juan Mata is a player that I would have liked to get into this particular team. But yeah, I just really couldn't find a way to get him into the team. If you have a look at Juan Mata's attributes, he's got a tackling attribute of 4. He's got aggression of 11 and bravery of 8. So simply, he's not really going to be making any tackles at all or helping us out in a kind of more defensive positions. If we take a look at Mkhitaryan, on the other hand, he's got aggression of 17. His bravery is only 10, but he's got good work rate at 17 and his tackling is 11. So I do think this guy's going to probably help out a little bit more in these sort of defensive situations when we do need to defend. The reason why I'm having a think about how we're going to be defending is quite simply because Martial is not really going to be doing any defending. Of course, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is not really going to be sort of doing much defending. Rooney is going to be helping out. When we don't have the ball, what Rooney needs to be doing all the time is just making sure that he's closing down the opposition as quickly as possible. When we are, when the other team is attacking us, Mkhitaryan is basically going to be sort of pushing around, or at least helping with the midfielders. So he's probably going to be roughly kind of hovering around here. I've decided to put Paul Pogba on a deep line playmaker role, simply because on the support function it's got here that the deep line playmaker will bring the ball out of the defence and look for long shot opportunities as well as supplying through balls. Obviously, I highlighted earlier that Paul Pogba has got absolutely fantastic long shot attributes, so it's going to be definitely worth making the most out of that. In terms of Ander Herrera, this guy is absolutely fantastic, and he's the exact type of player that I absolutely love on Football Manager. He's got really good work rate. He's actually good at passing, got good technique. He can put his foot into a tackle as well. He's got the good aggression, good bravery. He's got good stamina, pretty decent acceleration. So for me, this type of player is absolutely brilliant. The only thing I don't particularly like about Ander Herrera, something that I would probably have a look out for, is that his player trait is that he likes to get into the opposition area. I don't really want him bombing forward at all, and you will notice that I put him on the defend function as a central midfielder. Basically, he just needs to be hovering around this kind of area when we are sort of defending, and he just needs to be making tackles as soon as he can. Pogba will put his foot into a tackle as well, so I do think that's going to be quite a good thing. In terms of the back four, I've just kept it fairly simple. Luke Shaw and Valencia as fullbacks, Smalling and Bailey in the middle of the pitch, which I think should be pretty solid as well. I do want to just take a look at the team instructions. So in terms of tempo, I do think it's going to be a good idea to make sure that we're working at a higher tempo with this particular team. It's going to be good to have a balanced width as well. You'll see in a minute, I'm going to show you the player instructions, but basically Valencia is going to be allowed to bomb forward as much as possible. Luke Shaw on the other on the left fullback position, he's not going to be allowed to bomb forward as much, just because Martial is going to be doing, that work on the left-hand side, basically, in terms of attacking. So Luke Shaw does not really need to get forward. I put the closing down to sometimes because I'll show you the player instructions and I'll show you exactly, my thoughts on how I do want my team to close down. But yeah, pretty much everything else is relatively kind of standard, really. I'll put it on the control function just so that we're sort of pressuring teams and just being, as forward thinking as possible. I've also put the team shape on flexible as well. There are certain players that I do want them to hold their position, mainly these two guys here, but the rest of the team, they can near enough do whatever the hell they want, to be honest, especially these four up top. So let's have a real quick look at the player instructions. So like I mentioned with Antonio Valencia, I've decided to let him get as far forward as possible whenever he wants to. I have got him also on the stay wider. The idea with Valencia is that, he's going to have to provide our width on the right hand side. Mkhitaryan here is maybe going to be getting into that right sort of midfielder position, but I do think Valencia needs to be the main guy that's going to be bombing up and down here as much as he wants. He does that for Manchester United in real life, and that's exactly what I want him to be doing on here as well. Likewise with Luke Shaw on the left side, I'm not letting him be that much advanced, in terms of getting forward as much as he wants. I want him to be a little bit more defensive. I do want him to be closing down a lot more though, simply because, Martial with his tackling of free, aggression free, he does have the work rate, but Martial is simply not going to be making hardly any tackles at all. I've basically just said to Martial that I don't want him closing down, and that if he is getting back, he's basically just got to hold his position, so that he's basically just a body in terms of being there helping us back, but not actually bothering to sort of like make tackles and things like that. He just needs to kind of like hold his defensive shape, just so that we've actually got people more in a defensive shape, basically. In the kind of centre position, I do want Ander Herrera to just hold his position, and I do want him to close down more as well. What I've decided to do for Pogba, I am letting him close down sometimes. Basically, if Ander Herrera is going to be closing down more, then I don't want Pogba to be going for the same ball as well. So I want Paul Pogba to think about when he is closing down the opposition as well. So having Pogba on the closing down sometimes is going to be quite a good thing to do, just because I don't want him and Herrera going for the same ball, basically. Mkhitaryan, I am looking for him to close down more, just simply because he's going to be doing the closing down that Pogba's not going to be doing. I don't really want him sort of doing too many crazy passes or anything like this. He does have a vision of 14, but his passing attribute's only 13, so he's not exactly sort of too gifted in terms of, you know, his creativity, but he is very good at like dribbling and things like this. So yeah, I don't want him doing too many risky passes. I'd much prefer Rooney to be doing our risky passes, which, as you can see here, he's going to be doing a lot more risky passes. Looking at Anthony Martial on the left-hand side, so I don't want Martial closing down. I do want Martial to sit a little bit more narrower, so when we do have the ball, basically Martial's going to be just sitting in this kind of position here. I have got him as an inside forward, which means that he's going to be cutting inside from the left-hand side. But yeah, basically what he's going to be doing is when we do have the ball, he's just going to be sitting a lot more narrower, just so that he can be getting more involved with the build-up play rather than just kind of sitting on the left-hand wing and not particularly doing too much. Zlatan up front, I'm going to be getting him to shoot a lot more often. Like I mentioned earlier, his composure is 13. He does have that powerful shots as well, which is going to be good. Finishing of 16, vision is very good as well. And I do think it's going to be a good idea to make sure that Zlatan is just basically taking as many shots as he wants. He's going to be probably getting a lot of kind of shooting opportunities, and I do think it's going to be a good idea for him to be doing that. I've just got him to close down less as well. I'm not really bothered about Zlatan making any tackles. Rooney is the guy a little bit further forward that's going to be making the tackles for us. Really quickly, just before I show you how this tactic looks on the match engine, I just wanted to show you one more quick thing as well. So I have put the crosses to be float crosses, simply because that is going to give Zlatan, who of course has he's good in the air, jumping reach of 18, he's got good strength of 18 as well. His heading attribute is only 13. I thought that would have been a lot higher, to be honest, but yeah, Zlatan, basically I just want the crosses to be floated across to Zlatan. If anyone is making crosses like Valencia, etc., then it is going to be a good idea for Zlatan to make sure that he's going to be in a good position to get his head on the end of the ball. So what I'm going to do, guys, really quickly, I'm just going to play a real quick game and I'll just show you the highlights of that, and just to show you how this tactic works. Okay then, so I'm going to call that the end of this particular episode. The things I did like about this tactic is the freedom of the front players. It seems like Zlatan just being in the middle, being able to kind of move around wherever he wants, was a pretty good thing. Also, Anthony Martial on the left-hand side, you saw that goal where he kind of ran through quite a few players, and he was, you know, had the license and freedom to just pretty much what he wanted to do on that left-hand side. So, yeah, pretty decent tactic, I think, for Manchester United. Do leave your comments below if you've got any comments on this video, and we'll be back soon for some more Football Manager videos. Thanks for watching.